your local enterprise office, helping your business respond.
So I have the magnificent Blaise Brosnan here today, who's the Managing Director of the Management Resource Institute, based in Wexford, but still very much a Kerry man, I believe. Blaise is an author of 2 books, one that's named "You Are the Limiting Factor." Quite like that name, Blaise. And Blaise has helped literally thousands of Irish SMEs business over the last number of decades. And at the moment, he's really helping businesses manage their working capital and their cash flow. So you're very, very welcome, Blaise. It's fantastic to have you. We also have the amazing head of enterprise for the Local Enterprise Office in Clare, Padraic McElwee, with us today. He's got 20 years experience in banking, so he knows a few things about cash flow and a few things about working capital. He also holds a Chartered Global Management Accounting qualification. So very impressive. So you're very welcome, guys.
Thanks very much, Greg.
Brilliant. So let's look at the agenda for today's session. So here's our agenda. We're going to really look at 4 things today for the next 45 minutes or so. We're going to talk about how we can manage our cash flow and our working capital during this current period, this period when we potentially can't do business and we're at home. And money may be getting less and less. So we're going to look at that. We're also going to look at how we prepare to come out of this period, known as the twilight period post-lockdown. So how can we prepare our business for that period? And then we also need to look to the future and look at the number of years ahead. So how can we strategically position our business for the next 3 years? And Padraic is on hand to answer any local enterprise office support questions for us as well. So that's our agenda for today, guys. You're very, very welcome. I have a question, and it's a very, very basic question, Blaise. But sometimes with businesses, the basics, we don't understand the basics. So I hear the word working capital and managing our working capital period during the lockdown. Can you tell me what exactly is working capital? Can you clarify that for me?
Working capital is the money that we need in a business day to day to pay the bills, to pay the direct debits, to pay suppliers, to pay the payroll. The money that comes in and out of the account, the current account, on a day-to-day basis. It's money in, money out, and where the balance might be between both of those.
Okay, brilliant. So
one other thing I'd say about it, Greg, is that if you can't keep the money flowing in a business, you won't have a business. It's like the blood in our bodies. As I'm sitting here, if my excuse me, if my heart stops pumping blood around my body, I'll cave over. And it's the same way in business. If you can't keep the money flowing in the business, then you won't have a business. And there's no quicker way of going out of business than to run out of cash.
Okay, so that pretty much describes what cash flow is. So cash flow is the cash that we have in our business, yeah?
Yeah, the cash you have access to in very short term,
Okay, we got some questions in overnight, and one question that came in, which is a good starting point, is really what are the biggest issues, Blaise, that you're seeing that clients have told you they're facing during this lockdown period? So what are their biggest issues?
I would say from the clients that we're dealing with every day, first of all, I think mental isolation. They're out there, many of them are working behind closed doors, many of them, their businesses are closed. They are kind of physically cut off from a lot of their kind of normal supports. So they're kind of mentally, I think, isolated. So that's one of the bigger issues. So I think another one is the uncertainty. They're not too sure when they'll be allowed to reopen if they're already closed. They're not sure will they have enough money to reopen. They're not too sure how long it will take them from once they get reopened to get back to some sort of normal trading. So there's a lot of uncertainty out there. and uncertainty leads to stress. And this is why it's very important for our business people to utilize the local LEO offices and the panel of mentors and speak to people, because most problems can be solved if you kind of walk it through and not panic too much.
Okay, brilliant. So it brings me to another question that came in, which is a big one. So you're talking about people uncertain of the future, which makes sense, and obviously feeling isolated, and that's a very, very scary one. I suppose that's where business mentoring becomes very, very helpful, just to get the support, hear another voice, and to reinforce the decisions we're making are the right ones. So the question that came in is, what should people be doing for their business during this lockdown period?
I think it's a very important period because it allows people enough time to kind of review where they have been, the journey they've come through, and to try and crystallize out the journey out ahead of them. I think in two time frames. One, in what we call the twilight time frame, which is the time immediately after opening, and then more strategically going forward. But specifically within the lockdown period, we would have clients now, and they're using it to sort out their business, basically. We have one guy, and he's reorganizing his factory and the process. He's going through kind of a lean process in reorganizing the factory. We have others who are looking at the procedures and making certain assumptions about the future and putting together proper procedures for the business going forward. I had a meeting this morning, a Zoom meeting this morning with a client, and they are developing the virtual side of their business going forward. They have 2 retail units, which are both closed at the moment, but their business model going forward will be a third, a third, and a third. 2/3 in the bricks and mortar, but a third in their virtual side. And they're looking at the whole logistics of that at the moment. They're updating their website, and they see that at least a third of their business going forward will come from the virtual channel. So their business model is changing, and they're using this downtime to very good effect. They're also, which I think might be interesting to some listeners, they're also renegotiating some of their supply chains. They were basically dealing with one major supplier for the last 10 years. They import directly from Holland. Now they're negotiating with 2 other suppliers in order to give them a little bit more leverage in their negotiation. And I think the business will be all the better for that. So they're an organization who are using the time very profitably. I think there's others out there who are still in a spin. They're not utilizing the time as well as they should. And I think this is why it's so important for them to contact the local enterprise office and ask to be put in contact with a suitable mentor who will help them to kind of rationalize out and put a bit of a structure to that thinking.
Brilliant. So you mentioned a couple of loads of brilliant things there, but one learning I'm taking from that is very often as businesses, we're just so busy doing stuff that our processes are poor. They're broken. So now is a chance to look at our processes, even from a financial point of view, our cash flow processes, our working capital processes, and see where those weaknesses lie. The second thing that you say, which I think is so vital for small businesses currently, is to connect with other businesses and to avail of mentors, free mentoring. So at the moment, free mentoring with the local enterprise office, someone you can bounce an idea or get be confirmed that you're doing the right thing and feel that there's someone there to support you during that scary time as well. It's probably also a very good time to network with other businesses. When I say network, just pick up the phone or have a Zoom conversation and talk to other businesses and to feel like you're getting that support, because we are all in this together.
But I think the important thing there, Greg, is if they're talking to other business people and that I think they should be choosy as well about who they talk to. that they're talking to people that are a bit positive about the future, but realistically positive, I think, right? Because there's no point in talking to somebody and interfacing with somebody that's going to pull you down. You need to be interfacing with somebody that's going to help you to rise up.
Oh, great. Yeah, be careful of the company you keep in the business world at the moment.
Exactly, yeah.
That makes sense. Another question, actually, that came in was, it's more of a statement, but maybe you'll be able to add to this. It says, it's only now that I've stopped training or trading that I realize how much I was paying out. When I reopen, I need to be more lean.
Yeah, I think that is very true. I think the example I gave you there a while ago, where they're renegotiating with their supply chain, they have set a very specific target for themselves now to increase their gross profit percentage going forward by 3%. Now, they expect to get 1% of that by better purchasing, 1% of it through better pricing, and 1% of it through the elimination of waste. Now, 3% extra in their situation based on their turnover would put about 95 grand onto the bottom line going forward. Now, if they can achieve that, and I think they're very achievable targets, I think they'll have a far better business going forward.
Yeah, okay, so that's fantastic. Which actually is another nice question that come in that kind of leads in with that, because that sounds great to me, Blaise, and it's a lovely example. But how do I goddamn do it? So how do I do it? So question that came in last night was, how do I develop a cash flow process? I know that's quite complex to go through now, but ultimately, how do I even get started to put this down on paper and get organized?
Quite simple. You don't need to be an accountant or anything like that. And my recommendation to people is to have maybe a 4-week cash flow statement in front of them. And we call it a revolving cash flow statement. And by that I mean is that when 1 week is finished, you add another week to the end, so you never get to the end of it, right? So what is a cash flow statement? It's very simple. If you take your opening bank balance, say today, and predict what revenue might be coming in over the next 4 weeks, whether it's from debtor collections or if you're half open and you're trading somewhat, that's where the money comes in from. And look also at what money is going to go out in that period of time. And just balance off the two and you have a closing balance. You could do it in the back of an envelope. Nicer, you could do it in an Excel sheet, but you certainly don't need to be an accountant to do it. So it's kind of working ahead of yourself, documenting the money that's coming in versus the money that's going out, and see where the balance is. And one of the things we have found over the years with clients who do this, now some might do it on a monthly basis, maybe 2-month revolving cash flow, or maybe 10 weeks or whatever. It depends on the size of the business and that. But my experience certainly out there is those that do it are far more likely to be successful going forward than those that don't do it. And under normal trading situations that we've seen over the last 20 odd years in this business, those that do it tend to succeed. And I know lots of business out there, and they wouldn't be in business today if they didn't work that. See, everybody does it by default, but I think if you put it down on a sheet of paper in front of you, I think it just makes it more real, it makes it more transparent. And as one owner of a business said to me one day, he said, "We've gone very accurate now with our predictions." And I said to him, "I don't think you have got more accurate." And he said, "I have." And he showed me the spreadsheet. But the reality is they hadn't got more accurate at predicting, but what they had achieved is they were doing what they planned. And that's why they were accurate. And I think that's a very important point.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. That makes sense. I mean, finance can be that, and cash flow and all that stuff. That can be the big scary thing that we constantly avoid. And now's a chance to look at it head on. It was great news even today. The banks announced that they were going to allow businesses to defer payments for another 3 months. You can check out the details in the RT News, but all the main banks providing that support for small businesses. But I have a concern with that, and there was a question that relates to that says, what are the potential implications of deferring my bills and payments during lockdown? Will it come back to bite me?
Of course, it's only deferral, it's not a cancellation. So at some stage, all these deferrals will have to be paid back, right? But I have a bigger concern about business for the 3 to 6 months after their opening than I have for business today. And the reason for that is because, from once you reopen your business, it's cost you money from that morning on. And generally it's going to take a while to build the revenue. So my strong advice for people who might get the go-ahead to open next week, for argument's sake, I'd say be very realistic about it. Take your time, don't rush in, only incur the costs, be very mean with incurring the costs, the overheads, and try and match and take on the overheads at the same pace as the revenue is building. Otherwise, you're going to have leakage of funding, and that will lead to cash flow situations down the road. That's one point. The second point I'd like to make in relation to that is that there needs to be big staggering, I think, of the supports that are out there for small, medium business. The payroll supports that are there at the moment. If the timing of the withdrawal of those coincided with the deferrals coming to an end, I think business would be in a very, very vulnerable position at that stage. So I think the authorities they need to synchronize over time. And by over time, I'm talking about not 3 months. I think this is going to have to be done over 12 months on a scale basis, where the supports for the payroll are withdrawn on a scale basis over a long period of time, and the deferrals don't all hit at the one day. Because if that happens, the working capital will be just gobbled up in a matter of weeks. And to me, that's a more critical period than the current period for lots of business.
It's brilliant. We'll have Padraic on now in a little bit. He'll talk specifically about some of those supports and maybe the timing of availing of those supports. So you hit a very good point that resonates with me and a lot of the clients we work with is if you defer your payments, you're going to have to start paying them back in the future. Now that could be as far as 6 months away from now. But when you have to suddenly make those payments 6 months down the line and you have all these other strains and stresses for your business, how are you going to cope? So even if you are looking at a loan, say a microfinance loan, you may need that in 6 months. You may not need to be dipping into it now.
Absolutely.
It may be best used when you suddenly get those strains later down the line. That's
and I think that's important. And none of these things can be a cliff fall, in my view, right? I think they'll have to be staged over quite a long period of time. Otherwise, they'll choke small business who are, in theory, up and trading, but who will be under quite a bit of pressure from a cash flow or working capital perspective. And I think these are things that can be anticipated. They shouldn't come as a surprise. And the authorities and decision makers need to be very aware of the reality on the ground going forward. So managing, I think, the post-trading, startup trading is actually going to be the most critical period going forward.
Okay, fantastic. So quick thing is regarding, say, deferring payments. So, and I know this is too much of a general term, but let's address it. What can I and should I defer as a business right now?
I would say defer everything that you're allowed to defer, because you need to keep as much cash, we call it working capital, but really talk about cash, in the business as you can, because you'll need it. The day you open, you'll need money to open. You'll have to restock I was speaking to a restaurant owner the other in the week, and she does outside catering as well, and she's closed at the moment, but she has lost about 15,000 euro worth of stock because of the close down, because it's gone beyond sell-by dates and that now. Now, before she can, even if she was allowed to open next Tuesday, she's already down 15 grand of stock. So that's part of her working capital, and she's only fairly typical of what's around the situation. So I think from the date of the gun goes off that people can, particular business can reopen, I think you're looking at a number of weeks or maybe a number of months to get back into any sort of even break-even type of trading. And one has to be planned forward for that.
Brilliant. And thinking about the current times, I think as a lot of businesses, COVID-19 happened. It happened so fast. Our business is shut, and we went into shock mode. And I think a lot of businesses are now starting to think about how we're going to obviously adapt our business because of COVID-19. Because even when we go back to normal, it will be a new normal, not the old normal. So we're going to have to adapt. What kind of things do you think businesses can do right now during lockdown to help or generate cash flow?
Well, for any business that has a virtual kind of aspect, there's a bit of cash flow being generated there, but probably not enough to cover the cost of servicing that business, because they're not necessarily slick at the operation because it's a new operation for them. So it's part of the investment, I suppose, of getting into that space going forward. That's one thing. I would say be very slow about taking on overheads until such time again as you're starting to generate revenue. So my strong advice to our clients in particular is don't take back all the staff on day one. Don't only use money for what needs to be used. So you have to defer some capital expenditures and things like that, because the preserving of the day-to-day finance is going to be critical for the next 6 months or 12 months or whatever,
Yeah.
But, these cycles, I've been around long enough in business. Business goes in cycles, economies go in cycles, and we will get through it. But there's quite a difference, I suppose, this time around. I was looking at some figures there last week, looking at the recession of 1929, the bubble bust of 1999, and the recession of 2007 and 8. And in each of those three recessions, the stock market came back 52% roughly over an 18 to 24 month period. If you look at the stock market this time around, it came back 34% in 18 days. So it's the time length, the cliff fall this time around is making it quite different because there was no preparation for it. One day we were trading, the following day we were told not to open. And a lot of people kind of got caught in that situation. But that's where we are. That's what we have to work through, and that's what we're hopefully helping clients. And the Lee office and our people there are doing fantastic work at keeping the whole thing alive during these very difficult periods for people.
Brilliant. Just conscious leaving Padraic out in the cold there. Padraic, we're talking a lot about, I suppose, preparing for the twilight phase where we come out of this. We're also saying that, be aware of deferring all your payments. You're going to have to start paying stuff later down the line, and that's going to add pressure. And that's where the likes of a microfinance loan may be beneficial to an organization. I know you're going to be speaking about local enterprise office supports a little bit later, but can you tell us a little bit, say, for example, about the microfinance loan and how it works for small businesses?
Okay, Greg, maybe just touch on something that Blaise brought up there on the cash flow lending. And this is going back to probably my experiences in the banking world. It amazes me, and we're seeing it in the last couple of weeks, that simple exercises actually opens the eyes of business people because sometimes they don't realize what payments are actually going out of their business. And these could be small, but they may be telephone bills, they may be insurance bills. And what they're starting to look at, can they get a better deal on those small little things? But that all adds up to creating that free cash flow. I know there's a lot of resistance out there to taking on debt at this difficult time, because what people are perceiving, why should I take on debt now? That is another financial commitment that I can't afford. The reality is, as we go back to trading, you need liquidity, and liquidity is really cash flow. And microfinance loan is an opportunity to get liquidity into your business fairly quickly. And what I would say to people is, you can apply, go through the process, look at what sort of finance you need, talk to somebody like Blaise, because they'll sit down and they'll work through and they'll guide you what you can do, what you should avail of. But look at getting that approval now. You have up to 120 days to access that funding. So you don't need to draw it down now straight away. And bear in mind, the microfinance loan, the first 6 months are interest-free. You've no repayments for the first 6 months. It is at a reduced rate of 4.5% if you come through the local enterprise office. So it is cheap funding. So I would encourage businesses, have it there, have it available. And very simple, I was on another webinar yesterday, and we saw people that need to invest, say, in putting screens up in their business so that they can trade, but they don't have the cash to do that. Microfinance loans are an option to maybe do that, but working out your cash flow, what do you expect to generate? That little spreadsheet, Blaise, probably take you through it. Will your turnover be 30% of what it used to be? Would it be 50%? And do scenarios. And that way then you're able to work out, what is my capacity to maybe service a loan? So I would say to people, don't be afraid of debt finance. I know it is not the ideal solution, but it is an option. And that's probably the key message.
Okay, that's a brilliant advice. Let's talk about moving into, as we would call it, the twilight period. So we start to come out of lockdown. Businesses slowly but surely start to go back to a little bit of normality. How do we cope there? So there was a question in, how will I know if I have enough money available to reopen my business?
You come to me, Greg.
Do you want me to answer that, Greg?
Blaise, go ahead. Yeah.
I think that, again, one needs to look at kind of the short term, maybe the first 2 or 3 months, 2 months, maybe first 8 weeks after opening, and make two assumptions. One assumption in relation that the worst case scenario, very slow pickup on sales, and the other one, a kind of a practical, more moderate prediction. And look at sales, but not alone look at sales, but look at the timing of the money in from the sales. So different business will have different scenarios. If you're a cash business, you'll be getting money from every sale that you make. If you're a business that operates on projects, we'll say, and selling on credit, there's no point in having big sales initially if you can't get the money in. So in that situation, my advice would be to pick projects or pick customers who will pay you quickly in order to try and build up a bit of momentum and a bit of reserves in order to take on the slower paying projects down the road. So a lot of it is about the timing of the money in and the timing of the money out.
So the banks announced today that that they're extending the loan period. I assume that the non-repayments we do now will be added to the end of the loan period. Is that correct?
Hello?
Yeah, you're not forgiving the debt. The debt still exists, and you still have the original term of the loan. So you need to be careful of that. And Blaise touched on it earlier. What I'd recommend to everybody, have a conversation with your bank. That is the first thing, for two reasons. One, keep them informed what's happening with your business, where you need support, but also to assess the implications. If you take a holiday on debt forgiveness, does it make sense for you to do it? and what are the implications on your cash flow down the road. And for example, we have seen scenarios of one or two people where they fortunately have spare cash. The actual sensible thing for them is actually to keep paying their loans back in this environment. One thing that's really helping us at the moment is we are actually in a relatively low interest rate environment. So that is probably one fortunate thing in this unfortunate scenario. But all I would say to people, advice is talk to whoever your bank lender is, have that conversation and assess what are the risks to your particular situation.
Brilliant. Hopefully that answers your question, Caoimhe. Another question that's in is, how can I manage my cash flow effectively when I reopen? So again, thinking of this twilight phase, maybe there's a danger that we could bite off more than we could chew. We order too much. Maybe sales aren't what they could be. Any advice on that?
Yeah, it's going to be very strange. For the first week or two, nobody knows what customer is going to come in that door. Is it going to come in the door? Can you do online sales? For example, are you taking card payments? Are you paying on credit? Different businesses are going to be, say, impacted. But just take, for example, a small retail store that opens up. They may be only able to allow a certain number of people into the store at a particular time. That has a knock-on impact on the amount of cash they take in, yet they still may have the overheads. And that's where really what Blaise was talking about, doing that cash flow on a rolling weekly basis. It's assessing every week, what is the impact on this week? If I get that cash in and that cash out, what are the implications? I've heard business people say to me, is it feasible for them to reopen? Because they may not get sufficient cash to cover their overheads. But I would also use another argument. If you don't open, will you have lost that customer? And I've seen a lot of businesses, and I think very smartly, they're engaging very regularly with their customers. And really what they're doing is they're not necessarily making money at the moment, but they're making sure that their customer knows they are still there and they are open for business. And I think that's going to be critical in those early days of trading. And then there's the simple thing is, there is a certain cohort of people. I mean, going to your local shop at the moment to get your groceries is now nearly the highlight of the week. So people are hungry to get out and about. I think good businesses make it attractive, make people aware, and I think you'll get that business back and get that cash flow going.
Yeah, no, brilliant. What kind of things do we want to avoid to do when we get back to trading?
I think the mistakes will be being over optimistic. And I've heard a conversation with one client this morning. They were honest. They put their head in the sand. They just put their head down instead of looking at what they did. And funny enough, the reason he got in touch with us this morning is that he had started talking to other business people who said to him, you know what, there is opportunity out there. Assess what you need, contact for the supports. So the mistakes is be realistic, be positive, take all the steps you can, but don't be overly, shall we say, don't expect the world to return to normal day one. And that might be a case if you have particular staff, you might take back 2 staff rather than 4 staff. And hopefully your business returns that you're back up to 4 staff the following week. So stagger that return. Don't expect that day one, the day you open the doors, is back to normal. And I suppose the mistake I do is, or what I would say, is be positive, but be realistic.
Another question. I will pull Blaise back in a minute, see whether he can hear us. But someone said, is there danger doing too much too soon? And I think you've just answered that question, is just be wary of doing too much too soon. It may be better. We may need to bring back 2 members of staff rather than 4 members of staff. So we just need to be careful on how we open our business up again. This question is, what will the critical working capital issues facing these businesses or my business be 4 to 6 months after opening?
My personal view is, how quickly can your sales turn into cash? That is probably the critical, because that is your revenue stream in. And for example, what payments you may have deferred, don't assume that you want to reactivate those payments in the first week. You may want that deferred for another month. Or you may want to access the microfinance loan that gives you a little bit of a cushion from a liquidity point of view, in the knowledge that as your cash flow builds, that you then have the capacity to pay back that loan. And again, I'll come back to the point, and I see the comments, is I'm not encouraging people taking on debt. I'd rather avoid debt if you can in the particular situation. But if it is the realistic option to get liquidity into your business, to get you back trading and start building what you probably have spent years building up already, then it is an option to use. So it's careful management, and that might be day to day. That's balancing your till every evening. What were the revenues I got today? What were the outgoings today? Can I do something different tomorrow? And by the way, look at its incentive programs. I've seen one or two businesses. What they do is, so it's like the old thing. You go in and you buy a cup of coffee. So what you say to somebody, well, if we give you a donut for €1, so somebody say, well, that's cheap. Now your spend is €3.50, €4. Is there little incentives you can get that somebody like me as a consumer dealing with your business, is there something you can do that makes me part with a little bit more of my cash? And research has shown us is that instead of that nominal amount going up, you actually proportionally increase the amount of revenue coming through your stream, and that's cash flow. And as Blaise says, that's blood going through your business. That keeps you going.
A big fear I have, a lot of businesses have, is it's important to plan ahead. It's important to plan for the future. It's important to think about how we're going to get through this and beyond the immediate and the near future. But a lot of people have said that, it's very hard to plan too far ahead, even because their business may not even survive in the short term. So what kind of advice would you give to someone that's thinking, oh my God, I don't know whether I'm going to survive. It's very difficult to think about the future.
Well, what I would say is look at your business and say, is your business fit for purpose? Is there another way you can do your business? I spoke to a retailer during the week who actually was advised 2-3 years ago that he needed to get online. He didn't take that advice. He's now caught in this environment. So what he's actively doing now is, right, how can I get my business online? What can I do? Is there an easy way of doing it? And I heard a term yesterday I thought was interesting. Some businesses will need to go to their customers rather than their customers coming to them. So how do you do that? My local wine off license, very kindly, I ring him up, he now delivers to my door. I think it's a great service. But what that does is that encourages me to buy from him. So I would ask people in this, shall we say, downtime, assess your business. Are you doing business the right way? Is there other options to do it? And what I'd say, don't rule out anything, explore them, and you may test them and say, do you know what, that's not going to work. But maybe if I did this, that would work. Or maybe I can partner with somebody. Another one, I've talked to a few online retailers in Ireland, and people are buying on Amazon and that. But product at the moment is taking 4 or 5 weeks to come from Europe or wherever it's coming from. Most Irish retailers can get a delivery to your door within 24 or 48 hours. That is a huge competitive advantage for Irish retailers. And I've talked to a few businesses. I would encourage them to promote that, because people, when they buy something online, they want it fairly quickly. So think about what is unique to your business. What can you do? And it's not all about the cheapest price. It's actually about service. What can you deliver to the customer that makes them buy from you?
Okay, some great points there. And I suppose if you find yourself in the unfortunate situation of, you're very much face to face, people need to come in and physically do business with you, and your shop or your business is shut right now, it's possibly that opportunity just to reach out and keep your customers warm and communicate with them. Just make sure that there's that old phrasing, out of sight, out of mind, to make sure that when things start to return to normal, that you're the first hairdresser that person thinks about, and so on. So maybe be proactive there. Brilliant. Is there any advice that you guys would give me to safeguard? And I know this is unprecedented, the COVID-19 pandemic, but to safeguard my business against any future crisis. So it may not be as big or as hardcore as COVID-19, but what can I do to protect my business from a downturn?
Look after your customer. Keep close to your customer. Understand what your customer needs. Make sure you look after them. And I just want to revert back there to a comment you made, Greg. I know from just talking to my neighbours and that there's a huge appetite in Irish consumers to buy from Irish businesses because they actually appreciate that we are actually in this together. Yeah. And there is a huge appetite. So reach out to those customers. But equally too, and you got to look at a business. What are the risks to your business? Can I take options to mitigate that risk? You never will eliminate every risk in a business, but at least if you've planned a mitigation strategy that when something does happen, you're able to react quickly. And what I saw at the start of this, 4 or 5 weeks ago, to be honest with you, the good business people that I dealt with took immediate action. They didn't wait a week or two. They said there and then, I need to cut my costs. Unfortunately, I need to lay off my staff. I need to maybe start to work from home. But they did that within 24, 48 hours. And they're the businesses, in my view, that will actually survive. So any risk to a business, you got to look at it. That might be flooding, that might be storms, whatever. Just an interesting aside, I've heard 1 or 2 businesses that were under flood threat. They were actually able to react much quicker because they already had contingency planning in place that if they had a flood that they had to switch their business to maybe an online model or to remote working. So when this happened, they were actually able to implement that. They had all the technology, all the infrastructure, whereas other businesses actually struggled with that.
Okay, fantastic points. Thinking about how we reopen, I take it, Blaise, just checking in on you just to see whether you can hear us or not. But Blaise, I really want to thank you for your amazing insight and your amazing support that you offer small to medium-sized businesses. You're a brilliant mentor, and I know there's literally hundreds of SMEs that are benefiting from your wisdom. So we really appreciate you being on the live stream today and sharing some of your tips and advice with us. So thank you so much for that. I want to kind of round off this session by specifically talking about some of the supports that are available for us. There was a question, I'm just finding the person, Alex had asked earlier on, what supports are there for SMEs through the local enterprise office or even other government schemes beyond vouchers and so on. So if we start to think about some of the supports that are available to us, that would be great. So if we take, for example, a very popular support at the moment, which is the business continuity voucher. Now, I appreciate, Alex, that's another voucher, but let's talk about it for a second. So tell me about the business continuity voucher and how can I avail of it, and what exactly does it give me?
Okay, well, I think, Greg, touch on Alex's point, and I can understand what he's looking for. There is an appetite out there from businesses. Is there going to be some form of grant support to put into business? There's various supports. There is our normal grants available for eligible clients, but I do know that there's a lot of options under review, and I would expect various things to come down the road. But just to touch on the continuity voucher, it actually gets to the core of what the voucher is trying to achieve. The purpose of the voucher is for us to appoint a consultant to your business to look at your business and see what do you need to get through the current downtime, but also prepare you for when we do reopen and what that new world will look like. And the reason it's so important is most business people live in their business. It's very hard to stand above your business and look at it with a clinical eye. The continuity voucher is a way of getting an independent consultant. And, they may tell you something that you don't want to hear, but that message is really important to a business person. And the one big advantage of the continuity voucher for us as a local enterprise office, that's available to business with up to 50 employees. typically we're not the agency that support that category. And it's also open to nearly every business in a particular location. There's 31 local enterprise offices around the country. So the only non-eligible would be Enterprise Ireland IDA clients. They have their own supports. But that's designed, and we're seeing a lot of good work coming out of that. And in actual fact, what we're seeing coming out of that is businesses starting to change what maybe they are going to do, kind of looking, maybe my business model is not ideal. Is there another option looking at it? So that's what the continuity voucher is designed to do. And I know a lot of people often ask, what's the difference between mentoring and consultancy? From my perspective, mentoring is a way, as a sounding board, you go in, you assess the business, help the business person assess their own business, but the business still makes their own decisions. The mentor is really a sounding board, a guiding board, and really to prompt you, did you consider this? Did you consider that? The consultant is really coming in, working with you.
Yeah.
Right. That might be, for example, you need to apply to your local bank, you need to apply for funding. They say, right, we need to do up a business plan, we need to do cash flow projections. It's getting into the nitty gritty, shall we say, of helping you. But actually where we're seeing the voucher go the first week or two was all financial planning. We're now seeing it more moving into technology planning. How can I use technology to run my business? And I think we've all experienced, as we even see today, we all thought we were very digitally advanced. I'll tell you, we've come up the learning curve a lot in the last 3 or 4 weeks on that score.
Absolutely, we're learning every minute of every day on that front. So the business continuity voucher, it's a bit of a no-brainer if you're a business to avail of. And I think you hit a great point of what's the difference between now the local enterprise office offers you free business support, business consultancy, or business mentoring, which is brilliant, and that's a super sounding board. And then obviously really getting more stuck into your business with a consultant through the continuity voucher makes sense. So presumably to avail of that, it's as simple as contacting your local enterprise office to start with. I know you can find out more about the business continuity voucher at localenterprise.ie/response. I know a lot of people out there are frustrated because they're calling the local enterprise office and the phone is ringing out because people are working from home and the volume of calls is phenomenal. So I know Oisin and Orla last week had suggested sending an email as a form of communication if you're not getting through on a telephone. But it's a case of just reaching out as soon as possible, I would imagine, to see whether you can avail of the business continuity voucher.
Yeah, just Greg, on that point of contacting the offices, we are all working remotely. Yeah. Sadly, we are inundated. And it's unfortunate that that's the situation we're in. So we're trying to cope with that as best. All 31 local offices are trying to increase their resources so we can deal with it efficiently. What I would ask people to do is send in an email, because that allows us to track it. And also too, because we have other schemes as well. So nearly all the local enterprise offices, we've allocated different schemes to different members of our team. So we will give you a call back, and at least then you're talking to the person that's dealing with the particular scheme. Yes, we will answer the phone as best we can, but if those calls back up or whatever, that might be an issue. So please send an email, check out your local enterprise office. You'll get their contact details on it. And I guarantee you, we will get back to you. Just be a little bit tolerant on our timescales. But I know from my own area, we try to get back within 48 hours at the latest, but usually we're achieving a 24-hour response.
Yeah, which is great, but the volume is unprecedented, so it's completely understandable. So great advice. Send an email, and if you want to find out the contact details of your local enterprise office, it's going to be localenterpriseoffice.ie/ whatever your county is. So localenterprise.ie/ Offaly for Offaly / Limerick for Limerick, and so on. And also do a little bit of work. So check out localenterprise.ie/response and see what's available to you before you contact the local enterprise office, so we can be proactive when we're dealing with you, or when the guys are dealing with you. God, it sounds like I'm working for you guys now. But anyway, that's fantastic. So what other supports are available? We talk about the business continuity voucher. We talked earlier on about the microfinance loans. Thinking of finances, cash flow today, what other things are out there for us that we should be availing of?
Well, the most critical one, and to be fair, it's a response to government. We'd articulated an issue, and government, in fairness, responded positively, was around the trading online voucher. Two key changes on that. It is now 90% funding available up to a max of 2,500. That used to be 50-50. That's gone to 90. That's a big change. And the second criteria is, if you availed of a trading online voucher beforehand, you can now avail of a second voucher. The whole ethos of the trading online voucher is to enable your business to trade online in some shape or form. And essentially, it's a way of say I'm a customer of your business, can I interact with you through your website that it helps you achieve a sale ultimately? It's a great scheme. Eligible clients, you have to be less than 10 employees, turnover less than 2 million. But what I would really ask is, because there is, like everything, there's an application process, there's a bit of an admin. I know people don't like the bit of paper, but it is important. What I would ask on the trading online voucher is that you have a conversation with each of the teams in your respective LEOs before actually sending in that application.
There was a question in by Sinead, just before I lose you again, which was to do with the business continuity voucher. She asked, is there a minimum turnover point in order to avail the business continuity voucher? There we go. We're getting there. We came so close to the end, didn't we? With minor, we lost Blaise for a bit, but we're going to answer your question if it's the last thing we do, Sinead. Minimum turnover point in order to avail of the business continuity voucher.
There's no minimum turnover, but what we may do is we may assess with you, is a mentor and support going to deliver what you need. So what we do is, do not let that stop you applying. Apply. We will have a conversation with you, and we will determine what is the best way we can get you to support. But the one thing I can guarantee you, we will support your business. We will find a way to do that.
Brilliant, fantastic. So any other supports before we wave a teary goodbye?
Definitely look out for the online training courses. There's a rich amount of different online training courses run by all the local enterprise offices around the country. And it's a fantastic opportunity to upskill yourself, but also encourage your staff to participate and upskill them. I was looking this morning, I think we've about 7 or 8 training courses in the pipeline the next 3 weeks. 90% of them are sold out already. So we've got to look and see now, can we add in more? So there is a demand there. Use the opportunity. We're particularly seeing it very strong on digital marketing strategies and how to use social media, and maybe how to get stable broadband might be another one.
We've been trying that for a long time in Ireland, haven't we? Still quite haven't cracked it, but there you go.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we will get there. Padraic, I really, really appreciate your time. I'm going to try to bring Blaise in just on the off chance we can get him back. If not, I'm going to share some of his tips before we leave. Let me just see here. So, Blaise, any chance you can hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you, Greg. Yeah.
Oh, I feel like I've won the lottery. Simple as that.
Sorry?
I feel like I've won the lottery, Blaise. Brilliant stuff. So thank you so much for your tips and advice today. I have some takeaways that I'm going to throw up on the screen. Maybe you can talk the guys through.
Okay.
Because they're your takeaways, Blaise. So
okay. Will I go through them?
Yeah. So here they are. Here I'll
Yeah. The first one there is to survive in the least damaged way possible, and I think that's very important. The second one is cash is king. We spoke about that quite a bit. The third one there is plan for the working capital for the twilight phase, and that's the phase post the startup again. I think that's critical. And number 4 there is to optimize the supports from local enterprise office and the other government schemes. Number 5 there is to right size the business going forward, because the structure of the business might be quite different and the strategy might be quite different to the past. For some companies, there'll be opportunities triggered by the COVID-19. The number 7 there is to stay alert for inflection point. And by that I mean is, curves or cycles, everything goes in cycles, and business goes in cycles, and economies go in cycles. And the reflection point is where the bad turns into the good. And generally, better business people understand and anticipate that change quicker, and they get ready for it. And the last thing is to surround yourself, whether that's by phone, by Zoom or whatever, with positive people. Talk to other people that are going somewhere, and you'll go somewhere as well. So, Greg, in summary, they'll be the main points I try and get across. This cycle will pass. All cycles pass. The good guys will always come through, and I'd be optimistic for the future and consider this period as being an investment in the future.
Brilliant advice. Gotta love that advice. And to be honest with you, I think you probably have the coolest name in Ireland. Like, at the end of the day, how cool is the name Blaise Brosnan? Or Brosnan, yeah. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, that puts Pierce to shame, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, Pierce is the guy with the money, you know.
He's the guy with the money.
I just know a bit about business, yeah.
He's a rich relative, is he?
Yeah. But, it's both good and bad, because when you have an unusual name, you can't do anything bad because people will remember, you know.
That's very true. So a huge thank you to Blaise and Padraic today. So that brings the end of our Lunch and Learn. And in Sinead McKeever's words, she says, "Thanks, Blaise, always a shining light." And I certainly second that comment. So thank you so much for your wisdom. As someone said to me the other day, Blaise Brosnan, well, he's a legend. So thank you so much for joining us today. And of course, thank you so much.
Just before you go, Greg, could I just say thanks, Sarah Coughlin, who set this up, made the connection between us, and Liz and Bridge and the Local Enterprise Office here in Wexford as well. Just like to thank them and wish them all the best in their good work going forward.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And Padraic, thank you so much for your time as well. I know how incredibly busy you are. So you guys have been fantastic today. I really, really do appreciate it. And thank you so much.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, thanks.
See you
Thanks,
soon.
Greg.
Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
So that brings the end of this week's Lunch and Learn. So hopefully you got some words of wisdom from Blaise and from Padraic. We'll be back next Thursday with another Lunch and Learn. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but hopefully it's going to be something good. So from me, Greg, I'll see you next week, and stay safe and stay productive.
Your local enterprise office, helping your business respond.